I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. At a Senate Health Committee hearing on Wednesday, Senator Patty Murray spoke about school closures during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Washington Democrat praised the American Rescue Plan for helping get, quote, the vast majority of schools safely back open for in-person learning. Take a listen to her full remarks here.
We will now begin a round of 5-minute questions of our witnesses. I ask my colleagues to please keep track of your clock and stay within the 5 minutes. My first question is for Mr. Russell. And first of all, Mr. Russell, congratulations on being selected 2022 Teacher of the Year, and thank you for all the work you do educating our kids. The past few school years have been incredibly challenging for educators, and I know the tragedies in Uvalde and elsewhere only add to that strain, as educators have to help students navigate the heartbreak that comes with these far too frequent school shootings as well. And amid all this, our educators like yourself continue to work hard to get our students back on track. So, Mr. Russell, I wanted to ask you today, what can districts and states and the federal government do to better help our educators, including by addressing burnout and supporting their mental health challenges that they face today, so that you are able to focus on what you are expert in, which is teaching our students?
Thank you so much, Chair, for that question. There's several levels to that, to my answer. I think number one is the responsibility that teachers have now is demanding. And there has to be a way in which we could elevate teachers by compensation is one, in regards to making sure that the level of compensation is equal to the responsibility that they have. I think number two is for teachers to have a voice, to teachers to sit down at the table with legislation and create policies. Teachers are the experts. Teachers are the ones that are on the grind every day in the classroom. And I believe that teachers must have the respect to be able to sit down and make policy changes along with legislation.
Thank you. My next question is for Commissioner Russell Tucker and Dr. Goldhaber. The last few years have been incredibly tough on our students, on our families, and our educators. And given this pandemic's impact on learning, we need to do everything we can to help our students get back up to speed and successful, which I think is why it was so important the American Rescue Plan provided schools with the resources they need to stay open and to address students' learning loss, with a particular focus on addressing the disproportionate impact of the pandemic on students of color, students with disabilities, students from families with low income, and so on. Commissioner, let me start with you. Congress required states to address learning loss with the American Rescue Plan funding. How is Connecticut using this funding to help our schools and districts, students address learning loss and address their academic, social, and emotional needs?
Thank you, Chair, for that question as well. So critically important. I'm really pleased to say that we were very intentional in Connecticut to make sure that we had investment priorities. And to your point, the learning, recovery, and acceleration was a big part of that. Our districts are actually investing over $700 million across all the districts in that particular domain. They're looking at smaller class sizes, bringing in tutors in that particular space. But you're also so clear, it's so clear that we have to address fundamentally their social, emotional, and mental health well-being of not only our students, but for our staff. And so that was another funding priority that Connecticut put in place, not just for our district, but also for ourselves with our state set-aside funding. And in that particular priority area, over $183 million have been invested in that space. It's hiring additional support staff, social workers and counselors to be in that space. In some cases, it's working with partner organizations that are providers of services that can also support them in that category as well. So those are the kinds of things that we're working on. In Connecticut, I talk about my big audacious goal, which is to make sure that every school building has that level of behavioral health supports in it to make sure that children can thrive. And the teachers can also be supported.
Thank you. And Dr. Goldhaber, what strategies are you seeing work best to help boost students' learning?
Well, I want to be clear that we don't have evidence yet about what is actually working based on the current investments, but there's lots of evidence from pre-pandemic investments about what works. And there's some of the strategies that that I outlined earlier that seem to have quite large effects on student achievement. So, high dosage tutoring, which is, small group tutoring, at least 3-4 times a week throughout the school year, that has been shown to have quite large impacts on student achievement. Double dosing of academic subjects, so where where students may get extra subjects in math or reading. That has large impacts. And then various ways of extending the amount of learning time that students get. So extended school days, Saturday school, intersession, extended school year, and summer school. All of those are strategies that make good sense. But again, as I mentioned before, are a little bit politically contentious.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Wall, these have been pretty difficult years, and I think parents are concerned about their students' learning is at the highest level since the start of the pandemic. As a parent of 3 children, looking forward, how would you like to see schools and districts use these funds from the American Rescue Plan and better communicate with families?
Thank you for the question, Chairwoman. As everyone has kind of mentioned, I think it's important for the teachers and parents, in the schools to come together to try to help address these needs with the children. Coming, out of these past 2 years, children are faced with a lot of deficits in their learning, and I think that those need to be identified by the teachers, and then the teachers they need training and resources to help those children. I feel like children have been promoted to, the next grade level, and those teachers are required to teach at that grade level. However, those children are behind in math and in reading. For instance, our son, Carter, he's still learning how to read, and he's going to be going into the 4th grade next year. And so a 4th grade teacher doesn't have the training and the resources to teach a child phonics and how to continue their reading skills. And so I feel like they're not able to fully help him. So I feel like, giving teachers the training and the resources they need so that they can then identify those learning gaps with children, and then working with parents too. So parents can then help their children at home and work outside of the school setting to try to help them move forward.